You will speak?
Okay. DevOps kitchen talks.
Let's cooking. In Russian, it sounds like a little bit different, but anyway. So as usual, we will have some background music. I hope that will be comfortable for you guys. If it's not, please let us know in the chat. Maybe before we start stories, like I jump here, started as moderator. Anyway, maybe we will introduce ourselves, just like spend a few minutes for our audience, at least for 22 person who join our session. I hope you will join. So I will start from myself. My name is Victor. I have been working for EPAM around 10 years. It's too long, I believe, but anyway, currently I love everything what I do. I lead community, DevOps Minsk. Also, I'm author of DevOps Kitchen Talks podcast. And I love DevOps in general, DevOps everywhere. And let's switch to Maxim. Maxim.
Yes, hello guys. Hi all. I also work in EPAM. Several days ago, it was 3 years. And I passed the pass from student, DevOps student, to lead systems engineer. Previously, I worked as a sysadmin, so I know the ops part very well, I suppose. And now I'm more focusing on the dev part and the mix of them, DevOps. So can pass the word to anybody else.
Sasha?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I work at EPAM something in middle, 5 years will be next year. I also love DevOps and everything connected with that, especially clouds, infrastructure as code, CI/CD, so on and so forth. Nothing special. So, Karen, your turn.
Hello everyone, Karen Thomason, Solutions Architect at EPAM Systems Netherlands, AWS APN Ambassador, Data Community Builder, a big hater of everything which runs on computer, hater of infrastructure as code, all the clouds and stuff. Nice to meet you guys.
Karen, have you read from Sanskrit?
Nope.
All of your achievements?
Nope.
So it's like you prepared a lot of time and just, it was so quickly. I am blah, 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 all of my achievements.
Looks like it was not the first time.
Yeah.
Definitely not the first one, unfortunately. Before we begin, to our listeners, followers, and viewers, if you have any question you want to raise up, feel free to drop in the chat. I believe that the list of topics we have is not too big, and we have whole 2 hours to talk to. So feel free to drop a theme, as we say in Russian, drop it on the fan and let it spread. So, gents, what we're going to start with?
One remark about the questions. It could be in Russian, in English, I think in Netherlands. Oh, how it's called?
You can also, you can drop a question in Dutch. I will do my best to translate it to English.
Awesome.
Okay, maybe let's start from a pretty huge announcement from Hashicorp and discuss how it will affect in general DevOps world. And, from my perspective, why we decided to discuss this topic, because Hashicorp already achieved very great results. I mean, bring to us background. I think that somebody still remember what is the tool.
I remember, but who is using it currently in at least staging environment, for
anyway,
example?
I know people use it like for development environment and maybe for testing something in general, like pretty quickly to start and running something. Hashicorp Vault.
Not so faster than using Docker.
Anyway, Hashicorp Vault, Terraform. I know Sasha very likes Terraform. He's smiling. And this year they bring something else. Sasha, maybe you can just describe what's the new tools and why they released.
Yeah, actually, we would like just to speak a little bit about 2 completely new products on the market, which Hashicorp presented during last HashiConf days in middle of October. So, interesting thing is that, particularly for me, one of these tools is really something I was looking into on my past project. Especially, I'm talking about Hashicorp Boundary. It's completely new product, at least on the market. I don't see something similar, which provides you really good identity-based system, which allows you to connect and provide access to different users and groups of users to different systems without any headache. So you just need server, you need client, and configure user groups and roles. Right now, it's only on the idea stage because it's really earlier 0.1 version.
Maybe let's just like let me jump in here. First of all, what's the problem? Just like, for example, previously 10 years in my career, in EPAM and in general in IT, we used VPN, we used, I don't know, SSH, we used Bastion host, we used Active Directory for authentication, group management, so on. And currently nowadays also exist a lot of different tools which help you to create authentication, authorization, and security access to your system. But what's new? What's the problem and what's new in this product?
Actually, the main problem this product would like to solve and help to achieve some results is to work in modern dynamic infrastructure. So we are almost all partially or fully in the clouds. And we go to cloud because we would like to be scalable, we would like to be elastic, and so on and so forth. And actually, Boundary gives you ability to connect to instances via SSH, connect to some databases which you don't know exact IP address, which will be in 1 week. From one CLI, you just input what would like to achieve, some host alias, let's say, and provide your centralized username and password using some OpenID connector, like, I don't know, Cognito or whatever else. That's it.
Okay, I have a question. How's that different from Systems Manager? Session Manager, to be precise.
Systems Manager is mostly for AWS. Meanwhile, Boundary potentially can give you ability to connect everything. It can be...
You can install Systems Manager agent on any machine, also in other cloud and on-premise, and then manage it from Systems Manager. And using Session Manager, you can connect to it via SSH and you can do SCP.
Yeah, but in case of Systems Manager, if I'm not mistaken, you're fully depend on your IAM. I mean, Identity Access Management in AWS.
And in case of Boundary, you're dependent on Boundary.
Right now, yes, but in really next release, Hashicorp will introduce support of OpenID Connect, and you will be able to, let's say, pair with almost everything, because almost every authentication system supports this protocol because it's some standard today.
So that I understand correctly, it's something like a middleware with, does it require agent installed on the machine if I want to connect to it?
I can say yes or no, because personally I didn't touch it by myself. It's something in my pipeline right now to test it and probably prepare some tech talk to share with people, because it's some kind of black box for me. I just can take into account only everything I read from the documentation or the announcement during HashiConf. So I suppose that not client, if I'm not mistaken, this solution consists of server and controller, but I don't know, do we need to install workers on any instance or not?
Yeah.
Look at this perspective. How does the Session Manager work in AWS? You have the agent, which apparently provides the low-level local terminal interface and receives all the calls and commands from the Systems Manager, and you invoke your calls against the System Manager, and that's how they are locked. Your calls are apparently stay on AWS, and you have 100% guarantee that you have the full local fault operations. Now, if you have the Boundary, you have two options. Either the Boundary connects to the machine on your behalf. So let's say you initiate something like an SSH session to the Boundary, or SSH session. And the boundary itself initiates the SSH session against the node you want to talk to. Now the question is, if you want to, if it's like that, and there is just an SSH installed on the machine, you have the Ansible IKs, and then you have to have a key, which is which public part of is distributed across all the machines, and you make the boundary the central point and the vector of attack, as they are called. In other case, if you have an agent, then you have to manually install the agent on every machine, which is also fine by me at least. But what I'm really worried of is that come on, it's version 0.1. How long did it take the Terraform to mature, at least to this close to the production-ready system?
It's a really good question, because as far as it correctly,
it feels really tricky. I mean, yeah. I think I see the reasoning behind all this stuff. I mean, look, they have the version Nomad 1.0 open beta. So I think it's their first product, which actually is above version 0.1. I don't know about console.
No,
it's not the first one.
Vagrant.
Vagrant. Come on, Vagrant. Really. Who uses Vagrant?
Wait. Okay. Let me jump in here. Can you please explain me what's the difference? Anyway, like I'm still don't understand. What's the difference between to use old approach like VPN, Bastion host, SSH tunnel, and so on, and system manager or beyond? What's the difference?
First of all, from my point of view, the main difference is how the solution manages access, because Boundary is designed following modern zero trust architecture, yes, and it denies everything by default. You have really powerful mechanism to build some role structure and permissions around your host groups, users, and groups. In Session Manager, if I'm not mistaken, it should be configured via IAM policies, and yes, that's it. So I believe it's not something really different, but from unification standpoint, in my personal opinion, Boundary is a good way to manage all the access from one place. And again, don't install it to production today because it's really early stage. And but the direction and concept itself, for me, it's something I was looking before on my past projects, because in one of the projects we had really big AWS environment plus a lot of on-premise instances with really scalable infrastructure, and Session Manager was something we was looking into, but I don't know has the project implemented it since I left the project or not, but anyway.
I wonder, you had Sessions Manager, for some reason you've been looking for something else. I don't understand. And actually, Victor's point is a good one. I mean, you have VPN, and you have the secured connection inside of the VPN because of encrypted tunnel and all that stuff. You have the network, let's say L2, L3 based access to the infrastructure based on the IP address and your subnet. Also good. Management interfaces. Hello from 1990. Then you have the SSH, which also supports some, let's say, some tricky ways of giving privileged to not so privileged access based on the user group other and sudoers file, and maybe even SLinux a bit. Now, tell me, Victor, is it easier to have a fleet of thousands of machines and configure sudoers, groups, all this NFSD stuff?
Another way, nowadays, do we need so much machines?
Of course.
What's the reason why you install such kinds of machines? Like, for what reason?
I think I can give you hundreds of examples where you have a cluster of thousands and more of machines.
No, I'm thinking that Victor will put everything in Kubernetes, and
yes.
will be
and guess what Kubernetes does run? On the machines.
But we don't manage. We should not manage our workers from like I have not to connect through this SSH and take a look at what's the problem with my machines. Yeah,
but you still will need to configure the workers.
A lot of systems exist to do it in general. Yeah, and one question, guys, maybe to you. Currently, was some sound from my laptop. Have you heard it or not? Because I'm not sure, like, I transfer all sounds through the...
I've heard the Teams notification, but I'm not sure if it's yours or mine.
Yes.
But Vladimir heard us, so your Teams notifications are also firing.
I will try to fix. Okay, so my main question is like, you said about a lot of machines. Okay, Ansible, Puppet.
How
Chef.
does Puppet provides you SSH access to the machine?
If you prepare your Gold image, install Puppet agent, you can control SSH.
How does Puppet allow you to access the machine to the machine by SSH? You just run like Puppet SSH me somewhere or what? In Ansible, a good one. You can run a command ad hoc. Okay, I got it. I buy it.
Why you need to connect to this virtual machine?
To perform a local debug.
If it's local debug, let's do it on your local machine.
To perform a local debug on the distributed systems. I mean, come on. Even on Facebook, people SSH to the machines. At Yandex, people SSH to the machine. I have no reason to think that I will not need to SSH to the machine. And also, Alex mentioned that you can also connect to the database. What boundary is the centralized access to the various systems, which brings me to the suggestion that apparently with the Nomad version 1.0 beta, never mind, they are building their own cloud. And boundary is their IAM. I'm speculating here. Don't go buy Hashicorp stocks, please. I'm just a random guy. Don't buy Hashicorp stocks because of that. But come on, they have their secrets management. They have their own compute machine. They have their orchestration tool. They have their provisioning tool. What do they have in addition? They have their dynamic key value storage, like console for the configuration management and all that stuff.
Secret manager.
Secrets manager, yes. And now they have authentication and authorization mechanism. Oh, and they have their own cloud for the Hashicorp state. Not the Hashicorp one, the Terraform state.
It's Terraform Enterprise, and they believe they integrated everything in one product. You can buy this called Hashicorp Package.
So I think they were getting closer to the Hashicorp cloud.
Oh, Hashicorp
cloud?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, one short funny story for HashiConf regarding Vault. Because actually Vault is something which Boundary will be integrated with, without some deep details, but it was mentioned several times. And so one of the HashiConf representatives, unfortunately I don't remember the name, told really good story about how project Vault has born. So actually they started to create Vault during Terraform development, like internal system. And what we see today, Vault released in April 2015, Terraform released in July 2014. So 1 year difference, and Vault project version 1.6, Terraform version 0.13.5. So I mean that HashiCorp makes a lot of things internally and then propagate it externally, but I really believe that Karen is correct. So somewhere in the near future, I believe HashiCorp will provide some solution to bridge the gap between the clouds and build something on top of that. Who knows?
One complex solution to solve all of your, all of your needs
in one click.
Yeah.
Because the next product which also they release is related to CI/CD.
Yeah, it's Waypoint.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, Karen, question to you. From your perspective, just like in general, I know that you're very familiar with AWS. How do you think Hashicorp does they, engage? Maybe how they change in general DevOps world for last 5 years, and in AWS also.
Compare it to AWS or with AWS?
Both.
Okay, he's good. Okay, look at this one. What was introduced together with, what do Packer, Terraform, Vagrant, no, not Vagrant, Vagrant doesn't have it. Terraform, Packer, Waypoint have in common? 3 characters.
HCL.
Thank you. So they have their own ecosystem based on their configuration language. This is their, I would say, their vendor lock. So what they do, they provide you an open source software, which is a solution of their local problems. You are right that the Vault was born during the development of Terraform. Also, not the Packer, but the Vagrant was born because of Mitchell Hashimoto was struggling with VirtualBox, and he wanted to have the easy way to provision a machine from the VirtualBox. That's how actually Vagrant was born. So was the server, the many tools. So it's like, I mean, come on, Left 4 Dead was born when, I don't know, 10 employees of Valve were playing Counter-Strike with 30 bots armed with knives. And they were like, that's going to be a good game. I mean, all these tools are born because of the internal problems. And the fun begins when you try to sell them as a service and earn money from it, because people have a necessity. If you have this problem, then most likely others also have this problem, and that is fine. However, what Hashicorp is doing is trying to, I'm not sure if this idiom is well understood in English language. It's, let's say, they try to fit on all the chairs. They try to serve all the clouds and not only clouds. That will not bring them prosperity, and that will lead them to the situation when they are, where they have to negotiate with one vendor or another. All the vendors we have now on the market are pulling the customers to themselves. The multi-cloud solutions are not working at all. They are either working or poorly or not working at all, which is also fine and expected. So the only thing that helped Terraform to engage DevOps culture is the open source and Anton Babenko. One love Anton Babenko, really, the best guy ever, really. So much love against Hashicorp products I have never seen in my entire life. I wish CloudFormation had such an evangelist or ambassador. I believe then CloudFormation will take over the world. However, what we have now is that the Terraform is partially giving position to AWS, and AWS is giving position to Hashicorp. For example, AWS evangelists and developer advocates, for example, Darko Mezaros, they are streaming Terraform, the guides on Terraform, like how to write your first config, how to deploy it to the AWS cloud, and all this stuff. And at the same time, Terraform has developed CDKTF, the Terraform's implementation of AWS's cloud development kit. So what I believe is happening is that they are slowly merging together, but at the same time, I think they're really hardly competing with each other, at least in the DevOps area. I have a reason to believe that the only provisioning part will be owned by Hashicorp across the market. I don't think that they can take over the continuous delivery pipelines by using with the help of Wayland, how it's called, Valini, Whaler, Wheeler, Wayland. Wait a sec. I need the name. Waypoint. Waypoint. Yeah.
You try a few times.
Yes. But they have a really good chance with Nomad, because Nomad, I believe, is used by Cloudflare. That's their joker, I think.
Yeah, but not fully. So Cloudflare also uses Kubernetes in some mix of this Nomad.
Which makes it even more weird. Like, why you want to have two container orchestration systems? Sounds like one of another is willing to get a promotion. Like, hey, I'm going to put Kubernetes here and I will have the promotion, or not.
Maybe because Kubernetes not solve all of the issues. Guys, let's maybe move on to CI/CD.
Waypoint.
Yeah.
So yes, it's one more product which were announced during HashiConf Digital event by Hashicorp. So actually, it's one more attempt in modern IT software development process to build something which will allow everybody to build, deploy everything easy in one place, in one command. Like partially this idea was around Heroku and other tools. So basically today Waypoint also really earlier stage of usage. So it's one server which can be used and integrated with some clients from developers, let's say, side, and everything defined in HCL again. And it allows to do the following. You can build any product, not any, but in the future it will be any. Today it supports most of the modern platforms like Kubernetes, Nomad, ECS, Google Container Run, Azure Container Service, and build packs, meaning Heroku. You can build the artifact. It's everything which build stage does. Next, it deploys it to the target platform. Again, ECS, AKS, whatever else, and release it. Under release, they understand just making this service available for the customers. For instance, in Kubernetes case, it's just exposing the service, Kubernetes service, to the desired. Yeah.
So the definition of the release.
Yeah. For them, yes. I don't know why, but for me, it's something like tag creation or whatever else. And actually, it's a good idea on the first glance, but for me, I don't really believe in such real and ideal world, and I cannot imagine how I will work with that in the production in 1 year.
You don't believe in one-button solutions?
Yes.
I still don't understand what the problem they try to resolve by this.
They want to kill DevOps specialists because you just coded something and you wrote waypoint up and
yes, one command
released
to deploy any application to any platform without worrying about some glue language, without writing bash scripts in GitLab CI for 200 strings and so on and so forth.
200 files.
It's bad GitLab CI. Okay, so right now it supports not many platforms. Like I mentioned, it's just the most famous one, like ECS, EKS, AKS.
Only works with containers.
Mostly
Kubernetes, because in most
EC2,
cases...
EC2 also supported, so you can deploy it on top of virtual machine. I don't know how it works actually, but anyway, it gives you ability to get rid of many CLI tools installed on your machine. You can, I don't actually know, does kubectl, for instance, for Kubernetes deployed required? I assume that no, because it will be just interacting with API, with provider written on Go. And that's it. So you just need one tool to install and deploy everything anywhere.
But in general, under the hood, I saw the guys said, like, you can still have your own Jenkins or Circle CI or some other CI tool which help you, like it's like...
Which will run one command.
No, tests right now, it's something which is not included in this consistent...
The year 2020, we implement yet another code-based deployment platform, which still uses the old ones.
I wanted to ask, like, in nowadays, still, like, today, 2020, almost 2021. Hope. I will be in 2021. Yeah. And we just, anyway, in this year, I see so huge companies as Hashicorp, which have pretty reflection on the whole DevOps world, recreate the wheel, and this wheel is CI/CD tool. Why? One button, one silver bullet.
Man,
okay,
building your own CI/CD tool is cool. I mean, everybody has it. Everybody has its own CI/CD tool. Why Hashicorp wouldn't have one?
I understand if you are Netflix, you have your own CI/CD tool. I understand, but in general, why Hashicorp try to create a tool and other people will start to use tomorrow?
Do you know the comics scarcity about 200 competing standards?
Yeah, let's create one more and we will have...
We'll cover all the requirements from the previous one. Next slide. There are 201 competing standards. The same stuff. Why do we have multiple frameworks for the front-end development? Why do we have Kubernetes, Nomad, DCOS, ECS?
Not agree.
Form. Why do we have all this stuff? Why do we have Jenkins, TeamCity, Circle CI, Travis CI, GitLab CI, whatever CI? My favorite CI ever. Why do we have deployment tools like Octopus, CloudFormation, Terraform, Ansible, Puppet? Why do we have all this stuff? Because they all think they work on the tool with certain tool. Like the Chef was founded and Puppet was developed and founded by the person who previously worked at Chef. There was because the person who was working on Chef thought, okay, there's a problem I want to solve. He couldn't solve it in Chef. He left the company and then solved by developing Puppet. The people who developed Ansible were solving the problem of managing network equipment, because you cannot install Chef Agent on the network equipment, unfortunately. The year was, I don't know, 2010, and it was really hard to run something heavy on the Cisco IOS.
Why the Puppet was not introducing something to implement it?
Good question. When I have the breakfast with Puppet co-founder, I will definitely ask. No idea, man. Anyway,
Puppets nowadays. I mean, like, how much projects still use it? I don't speak as a project.
A lot.
Because the Puppet it's enterprise who started to use years ago, and currently, because of the legacy, they still have to use it. Yeah. I mean, like, from the scratch, like greenfield project, who will start to use Puppet?
Let me put it differently. Will you start managing virtual machines when you start greenfield? Most likely not. You will run something Kubernetes because you are 20 years old, you are young and famous and beautiful, and you don't have this bald thingy on your head, right? So you most likely won't use Puppet because you don't want to manage virtual machine. You don't have to. I mean, the year is still 2020. You have the cloud, which will deploy your Kubernetes cluster in a few clicks. I believe that's fine. The trick is, though, that there are major companies who have the segregation of the issues. When you have one department responsible for the security patches, the other department is responsible for the software updates, the kernel updates and all the package stuff. Then you have another department who is developing the software, another department which is packaging the software, and then the last one which is hitting the release button. They have one job. They do it well, though. Unix way stuff, and I don't know. Still, the old-fashioned configuration management tool still support that. You can do that with Puppet. But anyways, you're right. In the modern situation, when you have a small startup founded by few people, you have, I don't know, 3 developers, 1 front-end, 1 back-end, 1 database guy, maybe, and they're all co-founders. They most likely will not use heavy system to, I don't know, run a cloud. They don't have to. They don't need that. But for the old one, for the bigger companies with the big clusters and some of the legacy software, they have to face. They cannot change it. They would like to, but they cannot because of PCI DSS. I don't know, GDPR, all that regulation and compliance stuff. They have a security department consisting of 50 people who have kids, and that kids have to be fed. They have to go to school. So these guys need to work, right? They need a job. You have we still have Linux administrators who don't work for the tech companies, who don't work at the on Linux kernel. They work in the normal companies like running, I don't know, yam-y update in a cron.
It's people.
Yep. They still need the job, right? And they do their job. I mean, it's a good point that you most likely don't need to run the software. But yeah, regarding Hashicorp and why they released the waypoint, they have everything, right? They have the dynamic configuration management, they have the resource provisioning, they have even application orchestration service or platform, you name it. Now you need something to actually deploy your application on that fancy framework, application container orchestration, whatever framework, right? There you have waypoint.
Just to make sure that we have the whole life cycle for the project.
Yeah.
One additional tool which helps to solve one issue. Okay. Something else from big announcement from Hashicorp, Nomad release 1 now, or we will move on to
also use it carefully.
I need to say this because guys, we have 48 people. Yeah, all please wait for the version 1. Whatever it takes, whatever happens, don't listen to all these ambassadors. These 3 guys, they have no idea what they're talking about. Wait for the version 1. Always wait for the version 1. I beg you. Come on. And your employer will hire us to fix that. If you don't use the version 1.
And we will bring Terraform. Which
version 0.14 or whatever, yes.
Okay.
Oh, come on, I had to say this. Come on, I have to.
Just to cover Nomad 1. So actually, yes, it's in beta stage right now. So pretty soon it will be announced. And surprise, in open source version, namespaces will be there. It's something which a lot of people was waiting for. who uses open source version of Nomad, because in enterprise version namespaces were in place before, but actually in Kubernetes namespaces is something how it's called, nature, or just something which we need to start with anyway. So, and that's it. So mostly for Nomad, there is no significant differences with current version, but really it's good tool. At least I have never worked with it before. And actually I would like to try, but unfortunately I don't have such projects. I don't know why.
So the question, is there any breaking change after the Hashicorp conference? Is there any new tool that you need to implement, that you need to use?
Need to use for what?
For anything, for implementing the security, for changing your CI/CD workflow, for changing your containers orchestration. So what they showed new that you could adopt, because in each announcement that I read, it was like some kind of highlighting, please use it carefully. So what the conference was about? We are doing something, look at what we are doing.
Do you mean HashiConf digital
Yes.
conference? It's mostly about some achievements, probably announcements and success stories from the customers who uses HashiStack, how they call that, and including basically Cloudflare story was really interesting. For me, it was surprising that they use Nomad for some each components, and really it's good example, because I've heard a lot from Silicon Valley that a lot of big companies there prefer to use Nomad to Kubernetes. I don't know why, but it's something I've heard from one of the
Because Kubernetes is too complex. And the easiest way to deploy Kubernetes is hire a person who will deploy for you the Kubernetes.
So it's in GCP and only 5 binaries. Come on. It's not too complex.
I understand when you say like in GCP or AWS to deploy your Kubernetes, but in general, if you need to do something else, I mean, not like a standard your deployment and that's it. I don't know, like, for example, create federation of your Kubernetes cluster and not join to some company, I mean, like the AWS, AKS, for example, in Azure, and use it, because all of this installation, they have their own builds, they have all some specific, it's not a native Kubernetes. I agree, but then sometimes if you need to, again, apply to some compliance and you have to install something in your own premise, who will do it for you?
You're such a serious person right now. We have a question in the chat. Should we answer it right now, or should we wait to the end of the session? What do you guys think?
Let's answer. Why not?
Yeah. Thoughts on GitOps? I have a question in response. What is the difference between GitOps and infrastructure as code? I Googled it. I have no idea what's the difference, guys. I tried my best.
I can explain for you. If you say GitOps and infrastructure as code, in GitOps you also have to move the documentation to code.
It's not the old difference.
Why not? Infrastructure, it's the deployment of your infrastructure.
Yes, GitOps is mostly about a single point of truth and single point of applying all the changes. It's not something which stands on different sides. It's something which goes together. GitOps is not possible in cloud without infrastructure as code at all. You cannot say that we adopted GitOps when you just deploy your application from Git using Cargo CD, let's say. That's it. You need to control everything you can control, because otherwise it will be some partial solution. No?
For me, I agree, absolutely agree. But for me, GitOps, it's like a central database. Git, it's a general database for all of your changes and everything. What are you doing? And infrastructure as code is only one of the part.
Yeah.
Of all of your project, in general of your product. Yeah, and when we say GitOps, it means like I put everything, absolutely everything to GitHub or in general in Git. Yeah, for example, I don't know, maybe I also will fill some data in my database through the GitOps approach and create some data, I don't know, like create a schema or maybe some example of data also through the GitOps approach. Like I made the changes and it's applied to my database and so on, like I committed and started to deployment.
Anything else that you could put in the code?
Diagram as code, security as code.
Security. I think it also will be some kind of configuration of some tool.
In this case, we can say it's everything configuration. You know, like star, yeah, as configuration. Because if you make some changes, like for your product, it's also configuration. Configuration virtual machine. Nope. How to run the application, yeah. How to prepare your runtime, for example, and so on.
So any kind of configuration that is put it in the code, it's GitOps.
Not agree. I think when you have everything in the code and you can, you know, like
the question, what will be in this everything? So what are the items in this everything? One we talked is infrastructure as code, documentation as code, databases as code,
pipelines as code,
infrastructure as code, security as code. All of your configuration, what's required to start your product, it's as code. You don't have any manual steps, of course. Like, for example, if you need to create one more instance or create something like new instance of your application, you just like select new target and start the provisioning. That's it. You don't need to go, I don't know, like some database and, okay, we started a process with database. Let's create a schema of these databases. Or, for example, I need a secret to start my application. No. And you don't go to, I don't know, like Vault and put manually some secret from your paper. Yeah, of course.
It's also GitOps. It's written somewhere.
Yeah, of course. Where is store the secret? No, it's everything in the code, and you encrypt it, for example, and so on. And if you need to apply some, I don't know, routing process, networking configuration, also in the code. And just like in general, if you made any changes like related to any part of your application, configuration of networking, storage, application level, runtime, orchestration, everything, yeah, authentication, authorization, like from the Hashicorp product or maybe something else, everything is under the code.
So as the first step to move to the GitOps, you need to use configuration management. Then you can use infrastructure as code, and other steps.
Why do we need configuration management?
Argue at it again. Come on, you need it.
Why?
Those machines will not provision themselves. Kubernetes doesn't magically appear on your machine. It has to be installed. Those 5 binaries have to be shipped.
What's about Terraform? I just like apply Terraform. That's it.
Terraform doesn't provision on the machine. Or does it? It does the local exec. I think it's called remote exec.
It could, I suppose.
No.
Yeah, it's called remote exec or local exec, whatever. It still runs on the machine, still a provisioner, configuration management. Come on.
But, you can use some other tools, not configuration manager.
What?
And for example, as you mentioned,
Terraform is also a configuration management tool. Surprise.
Okay, agree. Okay, maybe let's move on to AWS outage.
Maybe.
I see your eyes, Karen.
That's the best
An
ever
story.
That's the best ever outage which ever happened at AWS. Okay, guys. Let's say you want to develop the distributed streaming system, and you have a front end which has to communicate to other instances of the front end. How would you do that? So I have a server which runs something, right? It's a front end. And for some reason, for some really necessary reason, whatever, you want this node to also communicate with the others in the cluster. How would you achieve that?
Who is the architect on the call?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We have the king of DevOps. Come on. How would you reach that? How would you reach that synchronization step?
Some shared central place storage.
We have the consensus algorithms, right? Like Paxos. We have some. That's a good one. That's a good one by HTTPS. You are my best friend now. So you can do the API calling. You can do service mesh. You can do, I don't know, some API gateway pattern where all the requests go towards the front and then round robin all the stuff. You can do the, I don't know, ring, whatever. What the Kinesis developers did is that each node being provisioned. Now let's move a bit back. The Kinesis, for those who don't know AWS for any reason, the Kinesis is a streaming platform provided by AWS. It's a streaming service. You create a stream. That stream has shards. The shard stores some amount of events in the stream. Those shards are partitioned, distributed, shuffle, sharding, all that stuff. Now, the Kinesis as a platform is used by AWS as well. The services of AWS rely on other AWS services. EBS volumes are stored on S3. I don't know, config stores the inventory information also on S3, and it obtains some changes using CloudTrail, yada, 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 yada. So they are all connected together. This is the best example of eat your dog food in the planet scale way. Now, the Kinesis platform, as explained by the engineers from Kinesis or from AWS, has the following. So you have the Kinesis frontend, which actually receives an event. And the cluster of frontends has the, how you would say it, obtains the configuration from the DynamoDB. Now, they also need to communicate to each other. So what they did is that when the new instance is being provisioned, the new thread will be created, and there is one thread per each instance of the cluster. So you have a system which provisions threads by the amount of nodes in the cluster. What could go wrong? I'm asking those who haven't read the postmortem. What do you think could go wrong?
You lost connection.
Sorry?
You lost connection.
I didn't. I said what could go wrong if you provision. So each year, let me repeat that. And I would encourage people who are watching us also to answer the question. If you have read the postmortem, please don't respond, because that's not fair. You know what happened. But for those who haven't read the postmortem, you have the cluster of machines. Each node will provision a thread, will create a thread, software thread. And the amount of threads will equal the amount of the nodes in the cluster, and that cluster scales out and in. What will happen? Try to guess, guys. It's not an exam. What do you think?
Some limits.
Good one. So apparently what happened is that when that sneaky guy, that small guy who was provisioned and started creating threads, and don't forget that others also create threads, they reached your limit. Maximum amount of threads on the operating system. And they all went down. Now you might think it's a single service, but surprisingly though, Kinesis is used by CloudWatch. So CloudWatch goes down too. And also there is a great picture. I want to share it because that's like plain classics. I'm willing to share it. I will share the link in the chat because you guys have to watch and read this too, because that's a biggie. That's a really biggie, and this raises a lot of questions. So what happened is that the Kinesis went down, the CloudWatch went down, and also Cognito went down. But the trickiest part was the connection between Kinesis and Cognito. Like, what does the streaming system has to do with the Cognito? Now, the response was that the API calls on authentication to the Cognito also go for Kinesis. So they had this streaming platform, which is used heavily internally. and ruining the system breaks a majority of very depending systems such as CloudWatch and Incognito. It was first noticed by the outage of the Incognito, and I faced it when I wanted to log into the PN Ambassador website to obtain the credits I needed to put in my account, and I couldn't log in, and the Incognito was giving me 503s, and I was like, wow, okay, that's fun. But yeah, that's the one. So the guy actually did the research and pointed out that the dependency. I like the scheme here. I'm willing to. I will share it if you don't mind. Share the screen. Session number 2. Share things. Tell me if you see the picture.
Yep.
So what actually happened, that the Kinesis is also using the Cognito for the authentication part. The DynamoDB serves as the source for the configuration. So the Kinesis goes down, so does the CloudWatch, and all the services are starting facing issues. Because, for example, what does auto-scaling use in order to make a decision if it needs to scale in or out? CloudWatch. So such things like Lambda, auto-scaling, ECS, and AKS, they also went down. So you had this cluster destruction. Brilliant one. Now the lessons learned, don't forget about your application runs on an operating system, which has its own quirks, tricks, or design issues such as ulimit. I mean, even if that wouldn't be ulimit, the thread still has to talk to another node, and that thread will use the client port, right? And even if you wouldn't face the ulimit, you would, in the end, you will face the limit of the client ports you can provision from. I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, 1024 till 65,500, I think something around that. You will face that in the end. And we're lucky that it was only one region. Now the lessons learned, instead of having many small machines, and AWS encourages scaling out, and scaling out is faster and cheaper than scaling up, because you have to, each machine has to be stopped, more resources have to be provided, it has to go up, it has to do the reconciliation, all the consensus, replications, the soft state, etc. Then the second one does the same, then the third does the same, and it's all a long journey. It's way faster than just drop another machine in the cluster. But we see that it results in the failures such as this one. So what they decided to do, as a short term, they will use, instead of having a lot smaller instances, they will have less but the big ones. Instead of, let's say, I don't know, 4 cores, they will provision 32 cores machines, and they decrease the amount of clusters.
But at the same time, it's like when we add additional machine, will help us, like to avoid situation bottleneck when you lost one machine, you lost everything. What's about in this case? You say like, let's.
I'm not saying they will have single machine. They will have less machine, but larger ones.
Okay, but in this case, if I lost one machine, it will affect more client.
Loss of one machine doesn't affect really. I mean, come on, it's AWS. Their machines die more often than I don't know. I have a drink or something. Like really, they die one by one all the time. They prefer kettles against pet, right? So the problem is not dying because of a single machine. The shard is replicated against several machines. Don't forget that. So in case of Kinesis, if a bigger machine will die, the worst that can happen is that the more clients will have to reconnect. They will not lose the data. The shards are replicated across several machines. There is not the case. It's not like a sharding when you have a single instance of the data. They are replicated.
But I can lose my session. And for example,
or if you're using AWS as Kinesis client, it will reconnect. Don't worry. Kinesis client is shard aware, so that's fine. But if you develop your own driver, dude, that's your problem, not his, right? Now, what the second is that they did a very tricky thing. Now, this is under conversation if it's a good solution or not. They decided to move the internal services, at least part of them, to a separated pool of Kinesis machines. Now, this is tricky. On one hand, they make their internal services, which are dependency to another service, which is a dependency to another service, to avoid that cluster break. They move the machines to the separate cluster, internal one, only to be used by AWS. But at the same time, AWS discourages that method. They want to treat everybody equally, even themselves. There was a good conversation, a good question to Werner Vogels at the Amsterdam Community Day AWS about if they are doing something for the bigger customers or not. And they said they are not doing that because they cannot say, okay, if you're Netflix, you have a bigger cluster. If you're Amazon, you have even bigger cluster. If you're, I don't know, horses and horns, you go to the small cluster of your machines. There is your playground. Go. You only bring us $10 per month, so go YOLO. They don't want that because their customer approach is that everybody should be treated equally, right? Now, what they do now, they have to treat themselves, AWS, not Amazon, AWS, differently. On one hand, it's good. They can mitigate the risk of internal outage. On the other hand, it can be a fork of development. For example, Kinesis for AWS will be developed differently than Kinesis, which is then supplied to the end user. Now, this is tricky. I really hope that they will apply a different approach I think they have to apply a different consensus approach. I mean, really, you have each node communicating to all the other nodes at the same time. I mean, I'm not an AWS engineer, but I think there are better ways to have consensus. So these are the lessons learned. Now, there is also conversation in the community. One say that they should have their own infrastructure running in a separate cluster, being fully separated from the users. Their outages should not face their internal outage, should not end up on the users. On the other hand, we have people who think that you should use multi-region. If you open the reliability pillar from the AWS well-architected framework, there's a saying that you should not rely on the physical resource. You shouldn't rely on the virtual machine. It will die, 100%. You shouldn't rely on the availability zone. It will also go down. That's why they have 3 or more. Some of them have only 2. There are still regions which have only 1 region, AZ. These are the young regions, I believe. But the majority of regions have at least 3. So you should distribute your application against multiple availability zones to avoid the outage of single one, plus 3 is the best number for the quorum. Now, another one is that you should also apply multi-region. And this is a conversation I have a lot with both my customers, my friends, and my community, AWS community, about the benefits and the pros and cons of the multi-cloud, multi-region. No multi-cloud, bad. Multi-cloud is bad. Multi-region is good. Multi-region approach. The multi-region means that you have to deploy your application in multiple regions by the saying, at least 2 of them, and you also have to distribute traffic across these 2 regions. So the load, and you have the application running in the active state. The most problem with that is the cost, because you have 2 access points. You sometimes have to double your sources. Instead of having 5 machines in one region, you will have 5 plus 5, 10 machines in different regions. The only thing you can do is to apply smaller sizes, because you it's unlikely that you will have double the amount of traffic just because you deploy to 2 regions, right? You can separate. You can have auto-scaling group here, auto-scaling group here, 3 machines here, 3 machines here, doable. The problem starts when you have to have replication. You can use Aurora Global. No worries, DynamoDB Global, YOLO, cross-region replication on S3, also fine. Traffic is very expensive. Inter-VPC connection is expensive. Inter-regional VPC peering is also very expensive. And this is why people don't want to use multi-region. Not because it's complex, it's not complex. I mean, Terraform apply region 1, region 2. Something doable, not a problem. CloudFormation deploy stack set, also doable, not a problem. The cost of the traffic is the pain. And most of the people are afraid of this. But looking at what's happened right now, when people have so-called doorbells being not working, or they cannot use the vacuum cleaner because the outage of the single region, maybe they will think of 2 options, that they will use at least use the different region, because US East 1 is the region which is the first to receive an update. Whenever there is it's the heaviest damage region. It's the only region which has custom rules, such as the length of the bucket name. It's the first region which receives updates, always the first one. And people still prefer using it. I mean, come on, there are at least 4 regions as far as I know. Yes, even let me check this out. I want to check this out. I believe there are more than 4 regions even. Where is my AWS console? I want to look it up.
In USA?
Yes, I think they have at least 4. Let me check it out. I'm not going to be a liar, and I'm going to open regions. I have Virginia, US East 1, Ohio, US East 2, US West 1, California, and Oregon. 4 regions in a single country. 4 regions. Get away from the Virginia. Leave Virginia alone. Come on, you have 3 more in US. 2 in the West, 2 in the East. You'll be fine. I mean, give this data center a bit of the room. I don't know.
Plus 2 in GovCloud.
Yes. So that's the funniest part. However, that brings a very dangerous conversation, because In March 2017, there was an outage of S3 in US East 1. Surprise, the same region went down 3 years later. So they had this outage, and they had an issue like there was claims in Twitter, as usual, that, for example, a person couldn't change the settings of his mice because the bucket was down. The whole service was down, the S3 service. And because of the Razor, as it said, the Razor was using S3, he couldn't change the settings of his mice because the outage of the service in cloud. I'm going to call concerns on it, because I don't want to believe that such an interesting company like Razor would really depend on a single storage option in the cloud. But anyway, the problem was that many services went down because of that. And 3 years later, we still have that. We have IoT companies which develop their applications being fully dependent on the cloud, on the region at least.
Not the cloud. In most cases, if I'm right understood the whole logic, I'm not specialist in AWS, but in general, yeah, to one service, almost like.
Last year it was one service. But the last time it was only S3 which went down.
Yeah.
EC2, ECS, all that stuff worked with no issues. This year it was different. This year multiple services went down. If you look at the Telegram channel called, I think it's called AWS Health, you will see like one by one going down. It was a cluster mess. Like one breaks another, one breaks another, one breaks another. Majority of the issues was because breaking of Cognito and CloudWatch. Many people use Cognito. I was surprised about that. They use it as an identity federation thingy. Like you can log in with Facebook. You don't want to mess up with your own authorizer. You just use Cognito identity pool and you'll be fine. But the CloudWatch outage brings down scaling services. And you really like the scaling features of AWS. I don't want to have 4 machines running 24/7. I want these 4 machines only when I plan the Black Friday, I don't know, or I want to have the Christmas discounts and stuff like that, or I'm running a marketing campaign. This is the only case I need these 4 machines. But the outage happened right in the week before Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you name it. Like,
yeah,
brilliant timing, brilliant. And that happened because of scaling. Because that one extra node was added. Because literally AWS was scaling because of the higher demand, which brought down the majority of the services at AWS, which are also responsible for scaling. I wanna see the number of losses. That would be so great. I mean, that's the best outage ever. Now the trick is that these companies, they cannot rely on the clouds at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure that next Monday, not today, maybe tomorrow, people will raise questions like, do I need to have multi-cloud? Do I have to move to another region? Do I need to have the pilot light running somewhere in a separate region? Maybe I need to have a pilot light in GCP or Azure. Yeah, they have outage way more often, but just in case, you know.
And the question is like, I want to highlight it. I don't remember the one question you mentioned about like, let's move to bigger machine. But at the same time, you mentioned about the limits on operation system, and you mentioned about the ports, which start from 1,000 and finish with 65,000. Ports, yeah.
Yep.
In this case, how will it help us to like work with these limits?
Number of instances are equivalent to the number of open ports. So let's
simply, so you have 10,000 machines which can handle millions of users, and they all have one core. Instead of having 1,000 machines with one core, you deploy, provision 10 machines with 100 of cores. They still can supply 1 million of users, but you still have only 10 machines instead of 1,000.
Okay, other question. In most cases, when the customer just like started to think about cloud services and so on, the main question, what's about SLA? And the numbers like 3 nines, 2 nines, 5 nines, and so on.
Okay.
Just like from your perspective, it's a marketing numbers or it's real numbers?
No, SLA is never about marketing. SLA is an agreement.
Agreement for what? Like in general, okay, in this case, yeah, I use AWS and I lost a lot of clients. I lost, I don't know.
Your SLA never covers the losses in financial case. Your SLA covers availability of the service.
I understand. Yeah, but what about if they don't feed this?
You want to see the numbers for the compensation?
Yeah,
Yep.
so in AWS case, they work as a compensation model. If they break some SLA, they will.
Have you ever seen this compensation model? If you lost, for example,
Look. Kike.
Yeah.
Amazon CloudWatch Service Level Agreement, right? The SLA applies to this following: API call, API call, API call, rule processing. So AWS tells you that we guarantee you with 3 nines, which is time is 3 nines, is 1 minute, 1.5 minutes daily, 10 minutes weekly, 43 monthly, 2 hours quarterly, 8 hours and 45. This is the time when they can be down. So literally, AWS CloudWatch was down for the amount of time, which is still in the range of SLA, so you get nothing. But anyway, they guarantee you that the API calls, logs calls, API calls are the metrics, get and put, logs calls are log events, get and put events, those are event breach, like machine provision, machine destroyed, etc. Alarms, rules processing, those are if the CPU usage is more than X, then fire me something. Events, rules processing, this is if certain events happen, let's say a new machine is being created or destroyed, then drop me a notification. Now they say that they some lawyer language, that they have offered at least 99.9 as a service commitment. Now, if that happens that they cannot provide you with such SLA, you will say you will have a compensation in regards of credits. So you will receive AWS credits, which will cover your monthly bill. And
yeah, but what they will cover what I use. For example, I use 100 machines, and this 100 machines, I don't know, cost around $10,000. Yeah,
look at this one. Kike. Service credits are calculated as a percentage of the total charges paid by you for Amazon CloudWatch in the affected regions for the monthly billing cycle, etc. So if you would pay an hour, let's say for the hour, you pay, I don't know, $10 for CloudWatch, and then it goes down. You will receive 10% if the SLA went down between this and this for that particular hour, approximately. And you don't pay for the time when it was down because no service is being used. I mean, CloudWatch is down, you cannot put any metrics. You can't read any metrics, so you don't pay for it, right? You cannot pay for 500. So this is how they work, and this is the SLA model they do. And this SLA model is applied for every service they have here. Now, there is another one, a great one, about EC2. They apply the services like EC2, EBS, ECS, ECS and EKS, etc., Fargate model. Now, the service credits here apply for the total working of the platform at all. They don't cover the virtual machine. If your virtual machine is being destroyed, you will not get any reimbursed for that. But if the whole service is down and you cannot provision the machine, then you get a service credit back. So you should carefully read this thing, the SLA agreement. And SLA is never about marketing. The only marketing SLA I heard is the Cloudflare SLA called 100%. That's the best marketing SLA. Nobody has ever provided 100% SLA, but these guys claim they do. But then you read below the wildcard what is included. And below the wildcard, almost nothing is included in the case of SLA.
Which service have you named?
Cloudflare.
Billing words means 100% SLA and charges money every time.
I think
without any issues.
That Google DNS also provides.
When I say, sorry, Maxim, when I say about marketing, I mean like, every company has their own brand. Like, for example, I am AWS, I am Amazon, yeah, and I say like I have 3 nines SLA for my service, and it means I put my brand, I put my image in general, and say, guys, if you use my services, I'm guaranteed for you that's only 8 hours per year, this service will not be available.
And if I don't comply to my guarantee, this is how I will cover your losses. They say nothing about your financial losses and your own. I mean, you can go to the court, you can have this heavy discussion. But anyway, the truth is that you shouldn't rely on a single region. or a single service, or even a single cloud. Sometimes you can no cloud can give you 100% guarantee. And there is a great question from Remington Staley about curious if it's still cost efficient to move up to a public cloud when your private cloud has better uptime statistics. I think moving to the public cloud only because it provides you a better uptime statistics is not really a way to go. People use different approaches about why they want reasonings, history and decision records about why they want to move to the public cloud, and to have a better uptime is not always the case, simply because your data center usually gives you approximately same amount of uptime. I believe the data center have N+1 redundancy in electricity, or even N+2, N+3 redundancy on the fire alarms and how you call it? Let's call it nature damages, electricity outages, cooling outages, and so on. They have extra diesel generator to provide you electricity if the electricity is down. However, you still have to perform your own maintenance of those machines and servers. If not, the data center's employee has to do that. And the reason why people are moving to the public cloud is because they want to offload such low-level operations like the maintenance of the hardware. The hardware engineer is way more expensive than DevOps engineer. I'm pretty sure if I go on the market and I want to hire the top man responsible for the Dell hardware, they will cost more than I do and all the guys in this session do. The network engineers, low-level network engineers responsible for the network hardware, building the core network, the hardware appliances, and configuring the core routing on the hardware level, not the software-defined networking. They're also expensive, very expensive. I know a person who is the CCIE, and he once in a quarter he just picks a contract at some governmental agency, a Dutch governmental agency, to perform the upgrade of their core network, routers and switches. Works for a couple of weekends, and by weekends you are being charged twice as more, and then doesn't work for a quarter at all because he earns so much money that he doesn't have to work at all within several months, and then just go to, I don't know, Vietnam or whatever he prefers. Low-level engineers who know this so 1980 part of the compute, which I don't even know and you guys don't know too, they are so expensive that's why people just bring the calculator and say, hey, hiring these people is very expensive, and I can hire 100 developers and pay some leftovers to the cloud. I think the choice is obvious. And the cloud computing provides you an ability to provision resources fast without thinking if AWS will run out of computers. No, it will not. There's no way it can run out of computers because of you. Maybe because of networks, but not because of you. This is the main idea of moving to the cloud. But still, there are people who use actually their old data centers as disaster recovery platform just in case. Some of them use different. Some of them use public cloud as a disaster recovery platform.
Also, multi-cloud is a bad choice.
My pleasure.
Why?
Yeah.
Sorry?
You said that using a multi-cloud is also a bad approach.
What is the benefit of using cloud? 2 words. Managed services. Managed services. If you use the multi-cloud approach, you cannot use Dynamo and Cosmos DB and Bigtable at the same time. Different protocol, different storage layers, different processing ways. You cannot use Aurora Global together with Spanner.
But anyway, you can use something what's shared. For example, Cloud SQL, and you can use the engine like, I don't know, like.
Can you configure replication between Cloud SQL and RDS instance?
No, but at the same time, your application can use it because it will use the same protocol, the same transport, and in general. And for example, you can run not replication of your data. I agree, absolutely. But anyway, you can create your own some layer will help you to create synchronization between, I don't know, AWS and GCP and so on.
So for the sake of multi-cloud, you will develop your own replication mechanism to provide the persistent state of the data between 2 different clouds because
you
the value.
Use on the virtual machines.
Amazing. Use the cloud provider, which provides you about 100 and more features to run virtual machines. Now, how is it better than running a cluster of virtual machines on Hetzner? DigitalOcean, you name it. Virtual machines in the clouds are expensive. Even if you run on the spot instances and preemptible machines on GCP, it's expensive. Building the application running on the virtual machine on cloud is ineffective because the benefits of cloud is to remove that compute part. I mean, Lambda was developed so you don't have to care about the virtual machine. Containers were developed so you don't have to think about the dependencies running on the virtual machine of the hypervisor.
I'm not agree with you when you say that will be like virtual machines is expensive. In general, I'm agree, yeah, but I think when we compare managed service or just deploy our own solution, and we say the final bill of the solution, we